give you a quick tour, we normally refer it to the front assembly or the thoracic limb. The majority of our canine companions have 2 front limbs with bones consisting of the scapula, the humerus, the radius, the ulna, the carpal bones or wrist bones, followed by the metacarpals and then the phalanges. Helping to hold things in place are small ligaments. So ligaments attach bone to bone, and these help to stabilize the joints. And cartilage in between those joints helps with smooth movement, okay? But something else that kind of helps, form that front suspension is something called the thoracic sling, and it's made up of these 8 muscles, okay? So basically, unlike humans whose arms or forelimbs, if you like, have a collarbone which forms the bony union between the arm and the trunk of the dog, dogs actually have a sling that supports and suspends the body of the dog between the forelimbs, okay? So it's not attached by anything, okay? It's literally just hanging there with soft tissue. Okay, now this sling is made up of these 8 muscles, and it allows for increased range of movement, or ROM as we call it. Okay, stop me guys if you have questions or anything like that.
A good explanation. And I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? Because we know that dogs are a lot more flexible than we are. They need to be, because the way they're walking is obviously completely different to us. And those front legs, well, we're going to go into breaks and things like that.
Exactly. So muscles and tendons are built to flex and extend and do have some elastic properties to them. So this sling does offer some shock absorption, but there is a limit to how much that will flex and extend, okay? It hasn't got a never-ending elastic. So if you've stretched an elastic band to the point where it can't anymore and all of a sudden it snaps, pretty much the same, basically, okay? So then we have the rear suspension. So a quick tour of the rear suspension, or the pelvic limb as it's known. And this is made up of the following bones. So we have the pelvis, we have the femur, we have the patella, which is the small bone or the kneecap at the front. We have the tibia and the fibula, the tarsal bones or the hock, the metatarsals, and then lastly the phalanges again. Okay, so now unlike the forelimb, the pelvic limb is not suspended by a sling of muscle. It attaches to the body via the hip joint. Okay, so there's your hip joint, which is a ball and socket joint. So it does that. It's a lovely ball and socket joint. And the pelvis attaches to the spine at the sacroiliac joint, which is just a little bit about here. And those are kind of, the sacrum is made up of 3 fused bones. Okay, so this means there is less shock absorption compared to the front assembly in the hind. Okay, so if I get my computer to work. To give you an idea of how much of the dog's weight is distributed, it's about 60% on the front limbs and 40% on the hind limbs. That's at a standstill, okay? So this is an approximation. Obviously, every breed is different. If you've got a bulldog like mine with a huge meat head, that actually might be a little bit more heavier at the front. And then he is kind of like on here. So now you know a little bit about how the dog is put together, we can start to